Milkshake chocolate too.
Perfect. Okay. So hi, everybody. Welcome to October. I hope you're getting all of your fun Halloween movies in. I definitely am. There's some really easy ones out I'm enjoying. So I'm just going to go through introductions. So I'm going to go through the list that I have here, and hopefully names don't pop around too much, and apologies if I miss you. So I'm Stephanie Cavino, Program Manager of the Blackstone Watershed Collaborative. Colleen Keenan.
Hi, I'm Colleen. I worked with Julie Bergson, who's also on this call, on a project about some of the environmental challenges and topics in the Blackstone River watershed for the Blackstone National Historic Parks.
Perfect. Julia, do you want to go next?
I saw she just got on. She might not be connected to the audio yet.
Okay, we'll give her a second. Carrie. Deb, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. I heard Carrie and I thought, oh, who's Carrie? Deb Carrie, that's me. I'm with Mass Audubon in the central region and do advocacy work. And
Perfect.
That's about it.
It's so much more than that, but that works for today.
Okay, take.
Ted Bouvet.
Hi, I'm Ted Beauvais. I'm president of the Blackstone River Watershed Association in Massachusetts.
Allison.
Good morning, everything. This is Allison Hamill. I work for the Rhode Island Department of Transportation as their Office of Stormwater Management Program Manager.
Great. Paul.
Good morning, Paul Papenchuk. I'm a member of 350 Central Mass, Worcester NAACP, and the Worcester Building Electrification Accelerator.
Great.
And much more also.
It's often the way. Andrew.
Okay, how you doing? Are you able to see me? I don't know.
Yeah, hi.
Oh, okay. How you doing? My name's Andrew Rosser. I'm the grandson of David Rosser. I just wanted to listen in, hear all the things that are going on. I know my sister's on here also, but I just wanted to say hello.
Oh, great. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Sarah Bauer.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah from Mass Rivers Alliance. I'm their technical specialist.
Thanks. Anne Armstrong.
Hi, everyone. I'm a new faculty in the Department of Earth, Environment, and Physics at Worcester State University, and I'm a human geographer and environmental social scientist, and my research is on environmental stewardship and social empowerment and things like that through stewardship. So just really interested to listen in and hear about all your good work.
Great. Thanks for joining us. Bill Napolitano. I don't want to play favorites, but one of my favorite humans.
Hi, I'm Bill Napolitano, one of Stephanie's favorite humans, and I think I have this album cover that you have up on the screen. I think it's from an 80s electronic album. It's either a Rorschach test that I've taken before, but I'm just here. I'm with Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District. I'm an environmental planner, and I'm just into this watershed thing. I love it. And this is the only channel my computer gets on Friday, so I always tune in.
Perfect. Thanks, Bill. Kay Denherter.
Hi, I'm Kay Denherter. I'm a member of the Uxbridge Board of Health.
Thanks. Good, Tapscott.
Okay, finally. Yeah, I'm David Tapscott. I'm the another member of the Uxbridge Board of Health and involved in I'm impressed with the wealth of talent that this group collects. And we'll call on you from time to time, I know, in our MVP project. So more later.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks. Don Rosser. We might not have Dawn's audio, but she's also the grandchild of Mr. Rosser, who started the, oh, do we have you?
Yeah, sorry about that. I had it on mute. I'm interested in listening to Colleen's presentation. So that's the main reason I'm tuning in. And I've mentioned that I have historical primary source documentation from the early 1970s because of my grandfather. I have his, and so I'm interested in contributing that research somewhere, somehow.
Perfect. Thanks. Donna Williams.
Donna Williams, president of the Blackstone River Coalition and on the board of the Blackstone Heritage Corridor.
Thanks, Donna. Adam Menard.
Hi, Adam Menard. I'm the town planner for Auburn.
Thanks. Greg Dorschler.
Greg Dorschler, Worcester Intercollegiate Outdoors Initiative Coordinator with the Greater Worcester Land Trust.
Thank you. Hillary King.
Good morning, all. Hillary King. I work with the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program for the state of Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs.
Thanks. Ian Culling.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ian Cullings. I'm an engineer with Providence Public Works, working mostly on stormwater and environmental work.
Thanks, Ian. Jen Hager.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jen Hager. I'm the town's Planning and Economic Development Director in Sutton. And we were blessed to get an MVP grant from Hillary's awesome organization and to do some hydrology and work down in the village of Manchog. So I'm kind of sitting in and whenever I can on these meetings to gain some expertise from all of you. And I'll be inviting many of you to our first listening session on that project in mid-November. So giving you a heads up.
Thank you. I look forward to that. Jesse Davis, another MVP recipient.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me, Steph?
Yes.
Okay, great. Jesse Davis, I work for the City of Worcester, our Department of Sustainability and Resilience, and I'm the Sustainability Project Manager. And yes, very exciting. We received funds from Hillary's program as well. And I will mention later, we have a really cool opportunity coming up for a community science engagement project that we're going to be taking on over the next year or so.
Awesome.
Thanks.
John Marsland.
Good morning, everyone. I'm John Moslin. I'm president of the Blackstone River Watershed Council, Friends of the Blackstone in Rhode Island.
Thanks, John. Karen Bradbury.
Good morning, everyone. Karen Bradbury with Senator Whitehouse's office. I cover the energy, environment, and climate portfolio in the Rhode Island office, and I'm here to listen and find out ways that we can support the collaborative's work. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Kelly King.
Hi, everyone. Kelly King. I'm an environmental planner with the Horsley Witten Group out of Providence.
Thanks. And I think last, but very much not least, Peter Coffin.
Hello, Peter Coffin, the coordinator of the Blackstone River Coalition and also the Blackstone Headwaters Coalition.
Thanks, Peter. Is there anyone that I missed?
Yes. Peter
Friedland. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I can only see you, Stephanie. I'm not sure why that is. I guess you got your screen up there. So I'm a resident of Upton, and I'm the former coordinator of the Center for Social Innovation at Worcester State University. And I'm interested, of course, in climate.
Awesome. Anyone else I missed? No. Okay. So first thing on our agenda is I'm going to hand it over to Colleen. And Colleen, you're welcome to share your screen, and she's going to talk about an environmental education guide that she's been working on. So I'll stop sharing and let you take over.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna share my screen and I'll check in that this is indeed working. Can you guys all see the blue slide? Yes. Okay. Thanks so much, Stephanie. Thank you, everybody who's attended this call. And a lot of these meetings in the past have been actually hugely helpful in kind of framing some of the environmental issues and concerns and good work going on in the Blackstone River Valley and watershed. So myself and Julia Bergson, who's on this call, but she's actually having some audio issues, but we worked on this environmental resource toolkit in cooperation with the Blackstone River Valley National Historical Parks. And the idea for this project was really to empower those rangers with materials that supplement the very extensive cultural resource background that they already have, to give them kind of an environmental resource guide to talk about the past context for what has led up to our current environmental moment and also the work that's yet to be done. And this project is mainly for rangers, or it could be for other environmental educators, but it's not for the public or to be distributed to individuals necessarily, because it assumes a bit more of investment and background in these issues. It's a little dense and it's about 20 pages long. And also this presentation will be just an overview of some of the content that it covers. So this is the table of contents of the presentation and also of the toolkit. So it starts off with a brief environmental history, which discusses some of the factors leading up to our current environmental moment. It actually focuses primarily on the industrial era in America's history, because that also relates to the parks that I was working with and is still a critical part of the state of the Blackstone River, as most of you already know. The next section is on watershed ecology. So this is meant to give kind of a scientific primer and some context for the environmental issues that are discussed. So what is a watershed? How is an ecosystem connected? And just concepts that help underlie the rest of these discussions as well. Next, the water quality and storm events section kind of talks about these stressors on the Blackstone River Valley system, and also how water quality and storm events are just connected in kind of a physical background way as well. And then there's a flora and fauna section, and talk about kind of key species that are related to these issues, like invasives and fish populations. And then these last two sections are a bit more skill oriented or forward facing in terms of what someone who wants to advocate for environmental stewardship might want to be aware of and talk about. So there's a discussion of watershed scale management and climate resilience, and also some tools for climate change communication. So this first section on environmental history goes a little more into depth on the industrialization of the Blackstone watershed. And I really think that even though this is not the only key moment in the Blackstone River watershed's history, the concepts of human and environmental relations can be a case study for highlighting other moments in history where humans have influenced and had either positive or negative environmental consequences. So the project starts with an acknowledgement of the regional indigenous lands, and this is also an image used in the Blackstone River Collaborative Founding guide document. The name is eluding me right now, but that was also a very informative source. What was that?
The needs assessment report.
The needs assessment report, yes. But so this section kind of starts from the indigenous occupants of the land, because we're talking about the ways that humans have related and interacted with the environment. So there's definitely a different scale of environmental change that you can see as the transition from indigenous residents of the land and then to the majority of the colonists and the industrial era that followed, which really increased the scale and speed of environmental change. So some of the key points that are to take away from this section are how colonists shaped the environment along their cultural notions of order, which is seen through multiple examples of the way that the watershed and its resources were commodified and used. And this quote also summarizes from the toolkit the takeaway of that history, which is that human populations had already altered the landscape for centuries, but industrialization accelerated the rate at which society, led by a small group of individuals, transformed the environment. The after effects of these transformations were then and now inequitably felt by different socioeconomic groups. This history can serve to highlight our modern value system and the need for environmental stewardship. And it's definitely not all doom and gloom. The booklet talks about how modern environmental action has brought hope and major physical improvements to the watershed. So there's a discussion of ZAP's really important work in the watershed, as well as the improvements accomplished by the Clean Water Act and the Upper Blackstone Clean Water Treatment Center. So altogether, this is meant to, as I said, inspire environmental stewardship, which really aligns with the mission of the National Park Service to preserve unimpaired the natural and cultural resources and values of the national park system for the enjoyment, education, and inspiration of this and future generations. And I'm excited that this project really crosses the boundaries of the park borders, because these issues are not contained within those lines and municipalities, as I think is also a mission of the collaborative, to kind of bring people in across different regions and institutional borders. So then the watershed ecology section follows, which gives that scientific and physical background for environmental topics relevant to the Blackstone River watershed. I have this lovely map, which I think is not in its final form, but is almost complete and will be published in the toolkit, I think, for the first time, but is created by Stephanie Covino and her interns, Katie. I think, was it Katie who did the
Kaylee
work on the map,
McLaren.
or Kaylee?
Kaylee McLaren made the map. Yeah, she gets full credit.
Kaylee made the map. I want to give Kaylee credit. And yeah, so to kind of give a visual also of what is the land and the resources that we're talking about. So once there's this background of how an ecosystem is interconnected and you can't really affect one part without having trickle-down effects on other areas, then it's then the toolkit can build on that information to talk about water quality and storm events and how different disturbances can affect this system. So some of the components discussed are the industrial legacy, how climate change will exacerbate the impacts and climate threats like how runoff and the increase of impervious surfaces changes the water quality and also is related to the increase of frequency and intensity of storm events. And then it goes into a bit of what the potential biological impacts of these changes are to the watershed, which have already been seen and are anticipated to increase with the onset of climate change. So some figures that are used to underscore these points are this GIS map made by Julia Bergson with data from Rhode Island and Massachusetts on new impervious surfaces in the watershed. And also a visual from the Upper Blackstone Clean Water Facility on how the improvements to their their biological nutrient removal process have really significantly improved the water quality of the river, while still taking a hard look at some of the current challenges to the water quality in the river, and such that like the Blackstone River is still impaired by pathogens, excess nutrients, low concentrations of dissolved oxygen, which has been much improved in the recent decade as well, but also and some concentrations of heavy metals, which can also be re-released with other major weather events. The flora and fauna section highlights more of those, what are the natural resources that we're talking about and working to protect. And some of the species highlighted are part of an environmental narrative that's important to the watershed. So for example, water chestnut, and there's a discussion of this invasive species and the environmental work and response being done to the challenge that the water chestnut and other invasives pose to recreation and aquatic life in the watershed. And then American shad is one of many fish that has been seriously impacted by some of the anthropogenic changes in the watershed, and is part of that environmental history that leads up to our current moment. So there's still a lot of work being done on how fish populations are impacted by these environmental issues and realities. So the American shad is part of that story. So that's part of why these species were featured alongside others that span the animal and plant kingdom. So as I said, these last two sections are a bit more forward-facing and meant to kind of inspire stewardship or give people the tools to feel empowered to work and talk about environmental stewardship. So this section discusses what watershed scale management and climate resilience means, and why those are important. Like, why is it important to work across these boundaries, to consider resources as a whole system rather than discrete parts, and also to adapt and prepare for changes anticipated by climate change in upcoming decades. And the last section, which has a lot of great information that I think also would be useful to other environmental organizers and workers in this chat, is the climate change communication section, which discusses some practical tools and tips on how to talk with different audience members who may come into a learning situation with different notions or backgrounds and opinions on climate change. A key takeaway from this is that the majority of Americans do believe in the existence of climate change, and there's been some really clear and simple ways to connect with different audience members to help them understand how this issue might intersect with other things that they care about or are important to us and society as a whole. So that is it for the presentation. Thank you all so much. I'm definitely open to taking any questions depending on the time that we have here. I'm really curious how each of you might use this toolkit, if you had access to it, or if you think that this would be useful for you and your organization. Thank you so much. Yes, my email's on there, and also maybe I can put Julia's information in the chat too, if anyone wants to contact either or both of us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Colleen and Julia, for your work on this. And I'm really excited about it and kind of getting it out there. And I think this audience is one that really would benefit from getting this information. So we do have a few minutes for questions. Ted, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Colleen. That was good presentation. You mentioned that I believe your target audience were the park rangers within the Blackstone Heritage Corridor Park. Now, I'm thinking that's probably a fairly small cohort of people, you know, and I'm thinking, since you put all this effort in, that there perhaps are other audiences that might also benefit from this? I know you described it as somewhat dense, but I think there's people who are willing to and interested in digging into it. So that's one question. And then my other one is, you alluded to major storm events. Did you look into the Great Hurricane of 1938 and the impacts that that had?
So Colleen, I think you unmuted the wrong one.
So the hurricane of 1938 is discussed in the booklet. It's not a particular focus of this project, but actually there is a follow-up project with Roger Williams Park that's in the works as well, which can hopefully kind of complement some of the environmental information in this booklet. And a history of storm events is actually an area that I wanted to expand on specifically in that project, and also the transition from indigenous land occupation to in like the colonial era. Not that that was a complete or total transition, but that those ecological shifts. So I think this one kind of underscores the concepts of major storm events and how we can anticipate the consequences of those events, but it doesn't really draw on that historical example as much. And to your previous question about this being useful beyond the cohort of park rangers, I totally agree. I think that the park and the rangers that I spoke with were also really interested in using this project to inform other groups or people who might be interested in it, and also to create connections and collaborations between other groups and the park. So I think that there's a lot in here that could directly be used in other communication materials, and I guess I'd be open, and I think I could talk to the park more about how it might be useful to be open and accessible to the public as well. I'm thinking it'll probably be on the Blackstone Park websites. So I think there's potential for that as well.
Thanks.
Paul?
Stephanie, I think this has such great value in several areas, including education. We have an opportunity to speak with high school students here, but also within the community at large. I find such a void of understanding of how being part of the headwaters of the Blackstone, the things that people do here every day affect the river. And so we have, we've observed people walking their dogs, scooping their poop, taking the bags and throwing them into the storm drain, and not understanding what kind of impact that has. And also, just last week, we had, during the rain event, we had a overflow of our combined sewer overflow into Lake Quinsigamon. And so there's great educational opportunity from the material you presented, but also advocacy to our city council to give this a priority, to educate and to appropriate funds so that we can do that last separation of our combined sewer that we have here in the city. So I would urge you to make this available if you could. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so the final version is actually still just being formatted and made compliant with some of the park's accessibility standards, but it will be final to be distributed, I think, in the next few weeks also. And I will be sure when that does happen that the project is distributed to everyone on the Blackstone River Collaborative. I'll talk about that with Stephanie too. So I'm sure we can make sure everyone's notified when like the final version will be published.
Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Donna?
This is very cool, Colleen. It's a great document. I would suggest in the biology chapter, yes, the dams certainly had impact on the anadromous fishery in the system, but I think it's worth mentioning that prior to the Clean Water Act of '72, there were only 2 species of fish in the river, carp and suckers, which can obviously live in not much, but now there are 36 species throughout the watershed. So it's good to talk about progress too, as well as the challenges moving forward. And my other suggestion is very self-serving. And the chapter that you highlighted, ZAP and the Blackstone Clean Water, I'd ask that the Blackstone River Campaign for a Fishable, Swimmable Blackstone be included in those advocacy efforts. So thank you. It's a great project.
The Blackstone corridor, Blackstone.
I can send an email to you both too if you want me to connect, and I'm sure Donna can provide some info, and there's some information on their website, which is zaptheblackstone.org.
Yeah, that's a tough website, as you said, Stephanie, today.
Org. Yeah.
Happy to provide more material.
Yeah. John and then David.
Hi, Colleen, great job. I just have a question on the aquatic wildlife. You highlighted shad on the presentation. Do they also talk about herring? Because all the fish ladder designs that they're looking at are geared towards the herring, not really shad.
Could you tell me more about that? Maybe we can connect on that, because I wanted to bring up a fish species that was relevant, and I knew that it was relevant to the story of industrialization, but I think that if the herring has more of this modern environmental relevance, that could be considered as well.
Yeah, because we have a gathering on the 30th and it's all about the herring.
And we'll talk about that a little later in the meeting too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No, I agree. It's a good point of herring. Yeah. David? Scott, you have a question? You're on mute.
Okay, there it is. Sorry. Yeah, thank you for doing this. Our MVP project could really, I mean, I think we would all be interested in what you've got in this toolkit, because it's really a good example of where academia, meets the ground level, so to speak. And I think that especially with the communication stuff and the forward-looking stuff, I think be very useful. A part of our project is going to be public education in the spring and creating a visioning workshop for dam removal. And this is right up the alley. So you can ignore my message, since you're going to distribute the resource through Stephanie. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're excited.
Awesome. So if you have other questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat or to shoot Colleen a message. And Colleen, if you want to put your email and Julia's in the chat, so just people have it easily accessible as well, that would be awesome. And thank you so much for this great resource. I think you can tell we're all pretty excited about it. So I'm going to go back to screen share here. two-step process. I am still learning how to do screen share and presentation. You'd think I'd be good at this by now. Okay. So next on our agenda, we have subgroup updates. So the first one is resolutions. Just a note that we presented to the Worcester City Council, and they decided to refer it to committee instead of voting on it immediately. So there are a couple city councilors that have questions. We're waiting for a date on when it would next be in front of the council, and we can get a vote, but hopefully we'll get that through. And then thank you to Adam for working with Auburn, and I think we're on for November 28th. Is that tentative or scheduled?
I believe that's scheduled. And I'll be working on your draft resolution next week, make sure it's all set. So
great.
We get to go.
Thanks so much. So if any other communities are interested in this, and I can go through and kind of reach out, I would appreciate it. So the next one is Bikeway and Greenway. Does anyone have any updates for Bikeway and Greenway? We haven't had them for a bit now, so I'm going to say no. And then the next one is water quality. So I think one for water quality would be Colleen's presentation and getting all this information out there, which is really exciting. Also on this, we had a tour of the Worcester Combined Sewer Overflow Facility. And thanks so much to everybody that came out to that. I think it was really informative to learn a bit more about how combined sewer works in Worcester. And, you know, we talked a lot about the advocacy efforts of getting that legislation passed about what language is required to be in the outreach, in the news notifications, et cetera, that it is relevant to a lot of communities, but it's not quite accurate for the city of Worcester because they do have this overflow facility that does do some treatment of their sewer discharge. So it's a little bit confusing still. And we did talk to Representative Mary Keith, as well as the folks from Mass Rivers Alliance, that maybe there's some opportunity there to discuss more specific or modified language for the city of Worcester in their notifications so that it's a bit more clear what's happening when there is a combined sewer overflow. So is there any other question or comment about water quality or that tour?
Stephanie, this is Ted Beauvais. Yeah, I wasn't able to make it. I was traveling, but Joanne Holohan said it was a really good and productive tour. And I have the Blackstone River Watershed Association. We had sent a letter to the city of Worcester back in August, and I followed up with them once about the CSO and the consultant that I understand they're hiring to do some additional evaluation of alternatives to address that situation going forward, possibly including a complete separation alternative, which I think is the most desirable and also the most expensive. But I have not heard back from them. So I continue to reach out and follow up, and will do so with the city of Worcester. I'm basically asking that our organization be part of the public participation process. I've asked for their public participation plan. I'm assuming they have one, perhaps they don't. I'm asking for their scope of work that the consultant is using, so I can get a feel for what's being looked at and undertaken by the consultant. And it's been a little bit crickets so far. So at this point, I'm a little disappointed, but we'll continue to try to engage with them.
Okay, great.
I have a question. Can I just pipe in? Yeah, I just wonder, who is it that you've been talking to? Because we do work with the city closely in managing Broadmeadow Brook. So I just wondered, maybe I could follow up.
Yeah, that'd be great. I wrote to Jay Fink, the director, and I copied his deputy, I believe, Mr. Gurin. So those are the two, and I had email back and forth with them prior to sending the letter. So it wasn't just like the formal letter was out of the blue. There had been emails back and forth, and then the letter, but I haven't had a reply to the letter.
Yeah. Could you forward that to me, Deb Carey?
I will
Because
definitely.
I'll definitely follow up because, yeah, I think this is a situation where if there was a chance of full separation and really investing, it might well be worth it. You know, they're weighing all the different ways they need to invest to improve the entire sewer system. But if there's a lot of strong support and maybe some public funding that could come to help them, that would be great.
Yeah, lots of public funding.
Yeah, I wonder if changing tactics a little and just asking for a meeting to discuss it so you don't have to have a formal letter and everything's in writing might be different.
Right. Yeah.
So if you want to copy me on that email, maybe we can have a meeting with them and
Yeah,
can
I
ask
think
Dave.
that's a great idea because that's really how you got the tour of the CSO, right? Was to learn more.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm wondering if that's part of it, is they just, you know, they don't want to put something in writing specifically about this is what I'm not sure, but yeah,
I'm
maybe
not
asking
either.
for a meeting would be
I'm
helpful.
not opposed to meeting with them, but I
Yep.
would also expect that when an organization makes a request of a public entity regarding public participation, that there would in fact be a response.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, we can follow up on that. Peter, sorry, you have your hand up.
Yes, I wanted to give an update on water quality, but just immediate response to Worcester. The opportunity with Worcester's integrated plan, which evidently is on EPA's desk and has been for more than 5 years. And I was very excited to attend EPA's talk about what integrated plans can do in New Bedford, Fall River, but EPA wasn't talking about Worcester's permit. And Worcester's not talking about its permit. And that combines the CSO and what is needed for final upgrades for the treatment plant and SSO. So it is very complex, and I can understand the city might not be ready to roll out with PR quite yet, but you should make an informal meeting together so that everyone is brought on, because there's so much opportunity to work with the city as opposed to having to comment later on something that's already been decided.
Right, and that was my intent, and I did thank them from all the good work they did, and I actually did plow through the integrated plan. So the letter was based on what I could gather from that, and we want to work with them. I mean, nothing can go forward on CSO without the city of Worcester.
Right. Good for you on that plan. That is that is a big one.
But then bring it back to this year's water quality. Heather Perry, our new hire, she's been great. Next November, the second Saturday in November is our final testing date. All our sites have been testing. We finally got water in the systems, the rivers, so that's good. Thanks to Mike Jarrell's offer of getting help how to get our data available. We're catching up on our historic data, and now with a new database, I'm hopeful within a month or so we can get stuff online and available, because there are a lot of requests, you can imagine, from people about water quality. And I'll just end by saying a couple projects that are hitting the fan in the eastern part of Massachusetts are some big box warehouses on 140. So in Bellingham, Hopedale, Mendon, some large lot development. And then you got the Grafton Upton Railroad that's cut like 100 acres. And then what to do with Hopedale, the shop there. So a lot of big issues are happening, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And I wanted to also mention that when we had a meeting yesterday about, I think that's actually the next thing on here too. Yeah, the university work. We had this interactive roundtable session at Clark. And thank you again to so many of you that came to that. One of the things I mentioned, people asked, well, not just for the collaborative, but for the groups you work with, how can we be helpful? And I said, you know, opportunities to connect with BRC and work on like the website and the database, or analyzing the water quality data, et cetera. So hopefully some students will follow up with me and I can send them over to you guys.
Okay.
Any other water quality updates?
What's that?
Okay. Any other university updates? Okay, I just will mention that as a follow-up to this meeting as well, one of the other things that we discussed was maybe there's an opportunity to get some of our universities and researchers and students together to do, this is not a short term, this is maybe a longer term thing, but to offer some kind of technical assistance to our communities or to our nonprofits that we work with. So choosing projects and kind of having them as a running list and getting those done. So this is a topic that I have at the very end of the agenda too, and I'm going to ask you for your ideas. So keep that in mind, particularly GIS ideas. If you have certain things that you would like to see, we'll have an opportunity at the end to go over those. Any specific updates for water chestnut, or folks have asked for specifically climate change on this as well? And then we'll go into all of our updates. I will just say, Colleen, if you need any more photos of water chestnut, I have a lot of them from our paddle. This is 20 acres of water chestnut in Lonsdale Marsh. I think that John Marsland also probably has some really wonderful photos of all of those water chestnut there. So for general updates, I think I want to give you two, and then I'll hand it off to everybody else. So one is that I recently presented at Mass FM, the Mass Association of Floodplain Managers, and I gave like a floodplain 101 talk on kind of understanding floodplain management for non-floodplain managers. So if folks are interested in that, I haven't gotten it on my website yet, but I will. I'm happy to send it to you. It's kind of like 5 things to know about floodplain management and things like how you determine what's in a floodplain and the resources, what's an elevation certificate, what's substantial improvement, and how land use interacts with floodplains. So I can on the website soon, you can check it out. And then they also mentioned, this is very relevant for the Blackstone, this comes up a lot of, hey, we realize that we don't have someone on our board for this region of the state, and not only not someone on their board, but they don't actually have any members from this region of central Massachusetts. So if anyone's interested in joining Mass FM, I would encourage you to do so. This is a clickable link on the PDF here, and I'll share this with you afterwards, or if you Google it, you can find it. And similarly, the Rhode Island Mitigation Association asking for new members from Rhode Island, if you're in that state, and specifically they have this Flood Talk Friday program coming up. So I think every month they have this Flood Talk Friday, and they have a specific topic and a speaker. I think it's $10. If you don't have $10, you might be able to ask them to waive that. I'm not sure how open they would be, but it never hurts to ask. So it's just another point of interest, and I'll put more details in the notes about that. Oops, did not mean to open this. There we go. And then the other update that I wanted to give everybody, and I can actually hand it over to John if you want to talk about this for a second, but putting this out there for everybody.
Yes, this is our big event coming up on October 30th. We reached out to the Narragansett Indian tribe, and they've agreed to come up and collaborate with us and give support to the fish ladder project to bring herring back to the Blackstone. And this is kind of historic because the Narragansetts, they've never thrown their support towards this project. So we have the Narragansetts, the Nipmucks, and the Shinnecock tribes are getting together and give us support on this project. We were asked to, create a larger voice for the Blackstone by the people that are involved with planning the fish ladder project. So this is going to be our effort. We're going to work through the winter with a herring design that we'll be coming out with shortly, and then have another gathering in May with more people from the communities to show support for the river.
And it's going to be friendly as well. So bring your kids if you have them. or your friends and neighbors, and we'll have folks kind of coloring a herring and cutting it out so that we can have some herrings on sticks. And then in May, like John said, we're gonna have, well, this is sort of like a teaser, but you know, we're gonna have folks migrating the fish up the river. If they can't do it themselves, we'll kind of help them along with these little fish sticks. But it should be a fun event next weekend, so feel free to join us, and it'll be at the national park. So other updates that folks have, feel free to take yourselves off mute or put things into the chat.
Steph, can I share some details about our MVP project?
Jump in.
Okay, great. This is Jessie again from City of Worcester. So I mentioned during the introductions that we received an MVP action grant to develop, we're working to develop a drainage and green infrastructure master plan for the city. And we're working with an engineer, Weston and Sampson, to complete this project. It's going to take around 2 years. It's a really big undertaking. And one aspect of it is to conduct a community science project. So we're looking for folks from higher ed institutions, students, environmental organizations, neighborhood groups, anyone who might be interested in getting involved. And basically we'll be asking these folks who are interested to help us gather data during big storm events. So we're trying to figure out certain areas of the city that are experiencing a lot of flooding, and we're going to use that data to create a stormwater model with our engineer. They have advanced modeling that they can do, and having community members go out and gather some of this data will be really helpful. We don't have all the details planned out for it yet, but just looking to see if people are interested, and it would be really helpful, especially in trying to plan out our future green infrastructure projects. So if you're interested in getting involved, again, I don't have a perfect timeline for it yet or all the details, we're still working it through, but I'll just put my email in the chat. And if you're interested, you can shoot me an email, and I'm just going to gather a list of people who might be wanting to participate, and then I'll reach out once we have all the details. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Jessie. And I'm definitely interested in sharing more information about that. Jen.
Hi, yeah, on the heels of that much bigger MVP project, which sounds pretty cool, just a few notes about our MVP project. Again, it kicks off in November. I'll be sending out the notice to Stephanie and other people on this call. Certainly, if anybody wants to participate with us, pop me an email at Town of Sutton Planning Department. But ours is much smaller, but I feel like from talking to Stephanie that it ties into a bunch of other efforts going on around us, because we will be basically starting at Dark Brook, which is kind of near Blackstone National Golf Course in Sutton, and kind of running south through the village of Manchog down to the boundaries of the town of Douglas, through that watershed and that drainage area there, and trying to figure out, taking a detailed look at man-made and natural kind of waterways, what's going on. We had flooding that washed out a whole section of Putnam Hill Road back in 2010. We had flooding in the Manchog Mill Complex last year in the summer. After a storm, so in July. So there's some stuff going on, and it may even tie into the historic mill infrastructure in the village, because there used to actually be 3 giant granite mills, and the water conduits that connected the 3 mills still exist out there in the landscape. So, and add into that some very industrious beavers that created a 21-foot high dam that we had to break up during the 2010 flooding. It's complicated and interrelated, and of course water doesn't stop at the borders, so we're hoping what we find out in our investigation will help downstream and upstream and in other parts of the watershed in terms of kind of pointing out where you might kind of investigate to see what's going on. And then obviously we want this work and this report to serve as a base for other funding and grant opportunities, anything from parks that can serve as flood storage to, dam work, culvert work, and the like. Main Street in Manchog, people may not know, is actually state highway. So we need to really wrap in Mass DOT, and Barry Lorian at District 3 assures me that they will participate in our process and help where they can. So anybody who might be interested, feel free to reach out, and we'll be getting the notice out next week on the first listening session. There'll be a listening session. There'll be a problems meeting where we talk about the problems our consultants have found kind of going through the area. And then we'll have a solutions meeting and an ultimate presentation of the results in a Board of Selectmen meeting next year. So, but obviously the listening session is probably one of the most important meetings to kind of get everybody's view on the ground of what they see going on. So sorry, a little long-winded. Thank you very much. And we hope to see some of you there.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Yeah, really looking forward to that. And Jen, also, if you want to maybe put your email in the chat, just in case anyone wants to reach out. A couple of people have said that they are interested in I'm reading the chat while I'm talking. It doesn't work well. And the Floodplain 101, so I'll send that out. And your projects. Great. Yes, my cat had to make a quick appearance there. Sorry. Let's see. Any other updates, folks? No. I'll mention one other one. So I'm working with Mass Audubon and the SNP Network and Cape Cod Commission, EPA, a few other partners, SERPED, to put on a bylaw review workshop. So looking at your rules and regulations in your community to encourage nature-based solutions, climate resilience. So that will be in Middleborough. It is next Thursday. I think there's still a few spots left. You can go online and register. I will get you the link here in just a second and put it into the chat. So if anyone, particularly planners, if you're interested in learning more about that, I would encourage you to sign up. I think this is probably going to be our last workshop for a while. We had one in Worcester over the summer. Get that for you. Anything else? No. All right. Well, if you think of something, feel free to pop it in the chat or unmute yourself. There's a workshop that's coming up. Let's see. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. One other update that I wanted to share is that the watershed, the Blackstone Watershed Collaborative, has now been recognized as an RCP. So if anyone is familiar with RCPs, it's the Regional Conservation Partnership. Sorry. And they are throughout New England, going down into kind of Pennsylvania, Jersey, New York area. And they work on large scale conservation. So in a recent meeting, I just happened to be talking to the gentleman who runs this from Highstead Foundation. And I said, oh, I kind of feel like I do a lot of this work. You know, would I be considered an RCP? And he was like, oh, yeah, obviously you guys are an RCP. You're amazing. You're exactly what we need for regional conservation partnerships. So I just got an email this morning asking for the GIS data and our website and everything. So we'll be listed on their website, which is pretty exciting. And it was through this RCP network that I was invited to attend a leadership group on how to make these meetings sort of more effective and how to really work well within your RCP. And through that, one of the things that I kind of know, but it was hit home, and I learned that I really need to be more engaging, and I can't just talk at you for an hour or three. So that's why I'm trying to like this PowerPoint, and I know it's not perfect, but the other piece is I want it to be kind of more interactive. So one thing that I'll start to sort of add in are these kind of questions and use a couple different tools to get your responses. So putting in a plug here, if you want to sign up to be a speaker, thank you to a couple of you that have already done this. But just like Colleen did this morning, every month we have a different speaker. So if you're interested in sharing your research or tools or education, or just telling us about what your organization is and what you do and what campaign you're working on right now, or talk about legislation, whatever it is that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to sign up for a speaker. And other thing is, I know that we currently meet monthly. And I feel like especially at the very beginning, we'd never done that before. This group had never gotten together. And so we had so much to talk about. And I think it really made sense to meet monthly, but I'm not sure if everyone wants to do that now. I really don't want folks to feel burned out or to feel like there's, too much. I want this to always to be really effective and useful for your time. So I'm going to ask, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I'm going to put this into the chat. Oops. And I would love to hear what you guys think. So for folks who have used Mentimeter before, you can just go to that link. And there's going to be a question that pops up. And you can just click on something. So it says, would you prefer to stay for meetings monthly, move to bi-monthly, or quarterly, or kind of something else? And if it's something else, feel free to put it into our Zoom chat here. And we will see what everyone thinks. So let's see, let me go back to my screen share. Again, thanks for being patient here while I learn all of these things. Okay, so we're just gonna watch this happen in live time. How exciting, right? So it seems like we're kind of split so far. I'll give you guys another minute or so on something here. We've got 10 responses and we got 26 participants. So I'm going to give you another minute. It's interesting that it keeps shifting from one to the other. Everyone's sort of not sure. So something that we are talking about as well is being more inclusive. And I know we meet during the day on a weekday. So there's also an opportunity to change when we meet, which is a different question, right? So do we want to still meet on Friday mornings? Do we want to have maybe a bi-monthly meeting, but make it in the evening? Do we want to have quarterly meetings during the day and then, different meetings in the evening or vice versa? So there are a lot of different options here, and I don't want to unilaterally like make a decision and tell you what we're going to do. It's supposed to be collaborative, right? We all want to work together. So if there are other ideas, feel free to jump in. It seems like not a huge majority, but the majority say to do bi-monthly, which I feel like is pretty good still. And I'm happy to still send out notes and information every month, which is actually next question. So let me figure this out. I've actually never run a Mentimeter before. I've only just used them myself. Oops, that's not what I meant to click on. Sorry guys, give me one sec. Okay. Hang on 1 second, and stop there and then go to the next slide. So I think if you just go back, go back to this same link, and it's going to have a different question on there now. And it's going to say, would you prefer to keep what we're doing as I send out notes, an agenda before a meeting, notes after a meeting, or would you rather see more of a newsletter? And so this also might be influenced by whether you think we should meet monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly. If we did change when we meet, I would still do a monthly newsletter or some sort of information. So if that changes your thoughts here. And same thing, if it's something else, feel free to add that into the chat if you have an idea. Have folks used Mentimeter before? I know some of our professional fancy folks yeah, our consultants is what I was trying to say. I probably used it. Yeah, professors, cities. Okay. All right, I'm gonna give you another second. You guys are very split. We have
Steph, I think your newsletters are, I mean, your notes are so great that they could easily be like slid in and bulleted as a newsletter. So I guess I'm torn, like what's easier for you? I think either way, like your notes are done so well, I can just forward them on as news and information to people.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Hillary, that I don't want to put any more work on Stephanie, and what I've seen from her is awesome.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to, I mean, this is obviously easier for me. That's why I'm doing it that way, but I wanted to make them a little bit more accessible. And I feel like a newsletter is a sort of prettier version of that. So that people are actually reading it a little bit more instead of just like, oh, this, 4-page document I have to look at again.
Yeah, Stephanie, I think a newsletter potentially has a broader distribution, and it would be not only relevant to the people who were on the call, but it could be of interest to a much wider group.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, we've got it totally split. So I guess everyone likes both. So maybe I am trying to get a new intern to help me out as well. Specifically, I could use help with communications. So let me, this is really helpful to know for me. And I think that I'll try and keep sending out my notes as I am, because that's sort of how I take notes anyway and modifying the agenda. But I'll try and also do, I'll look into kind of creating a prettier version of a newsletter and maybe share that more broadly where you can sign up on the website. And that way you're not attending the meetings or getting anything else, but you're kind of getting the newsletter. So thank you for doing that. All right, next part is a different tool, which maybe several of you also have used. It's a Jamboard. So if you go to this link here, and I'll share my screen as well. So at the very top, and let me share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. At the very top here, right here, there are these buttons 1 and 2. So there are 2 different questions. So for the first question, it's what GIS projects would you love to have that would support your work or your organization? If you haven't used Jamboard before, you go on the left here and you click this little new sticky note. You write in whatever you want, you press enter, it'll pop up a new one. You can just press cancel, move it around wherever. So if you have ideas, I know one thing that we talked about was, where are the access points along the river? And that obviously requires a lot of a lot more than GIS work, but maybe starting with like, what's the 500-foot buffer by? Thinking about, identifying potential municipally owned parcels along the river that might be able to turn into little access points or parks or something. That's just one idea. Another one might be, you can also change the color of your sticky note if you want. Another one might be previous wetlands that were filled and opportunity to restore. Another one that I've thought about. Oh, it should be editable by everybody. I'm sorry. Let me fix that. Thank you. Let's see. Why am I so zoomed in here? Ah, sorry. That's why no one's doing this. Editor. Sorry. Feel free to click on that link again or reload that page and you should be able to actually edit it. Thank you, Anne. And if you want to jump into this one, or if you want to jump into the second one, the other question that I had was, are there topics of interest that you'd like me to bring in from outside of our network? So I appreciated David's comment that we have a lot of expertise within this group, but if there are certain things that we don't have and you're really interested in, maybe you want to know about what the current environmental bill looks like, or what are the priorities for a legislator, or learning more about how a different city in a different area, how does Seattle work with their CSO? I don't know, I'm making things up. But if there's a topic of interest that you'd like to learn about, that I can go find somebody and bring them in, let me know, and I'm happy to do that. So. You can draw on this, but don't worry about if you didn't mean to. But yeah, feel free to just, it's this button right here on sticky note. So a detailed map of the local aquifers on Tri River Uxbridge. Okay, we can do something like that. One GIS layer that shows all the sampling sites. That is a great idea. GIS showing all the water quality monitoring sites, yes, with links to the data is a harder part, but definitely we can have someone do that. So my goal here is I have a meeting next week with John Rogan, who is a professor at Clark University in geography, and he has a lot of GIS students, and there are other GIS students throughout Clark. So we're going to talk about what some of these projects are and how he might be able to link them in with some of his students. And if we had sort of a running list of here are things that we all are interested in, as it comes up, as an opportunity comes up, he can just have a student work on it and provide that data for us. So we don't necessarily have to go every single time that a student has a question about something or is interested in an idea. Water chestnut infestations, location, size, treatments. I think Rhode Island maybe has this a little bit better than we do in Mass, or vice versa. Does anyone know about that? No. Need for river signage, definitely a great question. I'm working with Emily Vogler from RISD, actually. She's got some information about the locations of all of the dams. And I would say before all the dams would be a great location for signage, just as kind of a 101 warning. Watch out, there's something ahead. And noting where those actually exist. That probably requires a bit more of us getting out in the water again and looking at all those. But we can do that. Great. Feel free to keep filling this in, but the next question, so if you go to the top and it says 1 of 2 right here, you can click on the second page. It's the same link. is there any other topics that you're really interested in, whether it's best practices from out of state or specific information that we haven't reviewed or we don't have the expertise for?
Stephanie, I think the second one is view only.
Gosh, they're different. They should be. I think they're good, right? If maybe you need to reload the page again. Can you tell this is also my first time doing this?
Yeah, I'm able to access the second one, okay.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's a great process. I haven't figured out how to add in either, but that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, so if you click on the link again, it maybe you need to click again because of the editing changes. And then you go to this little button right here that says sticky note on the left under the big arrow. It'll pop up. You can type something in and press save. And then you go to get to 2 different ones and click on the top and go left and click on the top and go to the right. I know we have some comments in our chat as well. Mass Rivers does have an access tool. Yeah, we don't have a lot of information on the, I think we're missing some information on the Blackstone. Let's check out this website though.
Hi, Stephanie. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. I think it's a little bit different from what you were describing about access, but we are always looking for more information to include in our Explore Your River section, especially the Blackstone River. So if anybody has, information on boat put-in locations or, walking trails near the Blackstone that aren't already listed, please feel free to send me an email and I can pop my email in the chat and I'd be happy to add it to the page.
Yeah, I guess one thing I would sort of caution is talking about the river versus the watershed, because you can definitely swim in the watershed, but you cannot swim in the river. Okay, I guess that's.
And then if you go to our main page of Explore Your Rivers, there is an interactive map if you scroll down. I think I also popped that link in the chat, but if you just click on the Explore Your Rivers up at the top. So if you scroll down more, there's, oh, is it not showing up? There is an interactive map there that shows a lot of different layers that you can toggle on and off. For bus stops near the river if you're looking to access a certain location. I'll have to look into why that's not popping up. But yeah.
That's okay. That is good to know too. Yeah, we will be getting those together and adding them. It's one of my goals for the next year is really focusing on these access issues as well as culverts. Trying to get some more folks in. Oh, that's another thing is this is sort of for the spring, but I will definitely be hosting a culvert training workshop. So currently we only have about, I think 5 or 6 people in the state that are trained in this culvert assessment protocol from the North Atlantic Aquatic Connectivity Collaborative, NAC. So I'd like to host a training and get more folks involved in that. So more about that to come. And yeah, I'll share that probably over the winter. We can pick some dates, and I'd love to work with you guys on that. Hopefully I can get some students involved as well. Impact of water use and withdrawal by commercial and industrial, including irrigation. Yeah, so that's SWIMMY. Rhode Island doesn't have SWIMMY, but they have something sort of similar, but that's a good question for sure. Jen mentioned that you have dam warning signs at the Singing Dam that is very good. When we were paddling the Blackstone, we found a lot of dams do not have any kind of signage, no buoys, etc. So it's another part of access we'd like to be able to edit and improve. And yeah, email Sarah if you have more information about that Explore Your River tool. Perfect. Yeah, here's thank you for that swimming information. I'm not an expert on withdrawals, so I'm happy to hand it over. I cannot click on this because I can't see the button on the bottom. There we go. So there is a tool, and maybe, I don't know, Sarah, if you know more about this, you can kind of talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, this is the State Sustainable Water Management Initiative interactive map. This was the product of what the state went through around 2014 to update the state's Water Management Act regulations. And so this is essentially just a lot of data from the early 2000s on the groundwater levels. So if you toggle some of the layers on and off, they have operational layers that show you like flow lines, the major watersheds, aquifers. They also have what they call biological categories, which shows the impacts of groundwater withdrawals on the fish communities. They have groundwater withdrawal categories, which shows impact of withdrawals on stream flows. And then they show which sub-basins within the watersheds are net groundwater depleted. So that, yeah, they have a few different things that you can look at. You can also look at the cold water fisheries resources. I would suggest just popping around on there and toggling on and off some layers and seeing, you know, what might be of interest to you. You can also see water use points, so well locations as well. That doesn't have anything on public or private well use. So this is all publicly owned, but everything that's within the Water Management Act jurisdiction.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'll have to pop around on this one a bit more and explore that. Another one that came up is MS4 101, basic municipal stormwater runoff programs and how they work and how organizations can be involved. That's a really good question. I definitely have folks who can get some information on this. We have a stormwater coordinator in Massachusetts and another in Rhode Island that we could bring in and have do a session on that. And then maybe a SWIMMY 101 person. Okay. Yes, I will put the links in the notes to have more information on this. Yep. Great. Well, I really appreciate everyone's interaction here. Thank you for trying something new with me and going through this and learning along with me. And I will work on kind of changing things a little bit, I think, kind of more interactive into the future. And I will work on a newsletter. I think for the moment, why don't we still plan on meeting in November, but we'll plan on taking December off. I know a lot of folks can't meet in December anyway, especially with, I think the meeting is kind of late. It's 18th, which is the Friday before Christmas. So we'll give you that one off and we'll plan to do a November meeting next. So does anyone have any last thoughts or questions? Okay, well, next meeting is November 18th, and we will be hearing from the Oxford Board of Health about their MVP project. Sorry, Oxford Board of Health about MVP project. I said it right. All right, thanks everybody. See you next time.
Thanks, Stephanie. Good job. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steph.
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks, you too.